What's up, everybody? This is Chris Surratt bringing you another edition of the Car Concierge Show, the show that helps people with the buying, selling, maintaining, and repairing of their vehicle. Car Concierge. On today's show, we're going to talk about a couple of subjects. We're going to talk about some accidents or a fatal collision that happened on I-65 over in Alabama. Talk about how the gentleman, must have been on drugs or something, but crashed and killed one guy and injured another young lady, I think, as well. We're also going to talk about the Secret Service and how they standardly are not trained to drive manual stick vehicles, and GM is providing them with a couple of manual vehicles that they're going to have to learn how to drive, pretty much. And we're going to talk about the fact that driving stick is just not a thing anymore. And last but not least, we're going to, well, not last but not least, I'm sorry. We're also going to talk about Neil Young as he puts out another pretty controversial song as he talks about, the automotive industry, Tesla, GM, and as such. And last but not least, we're going to talk about Tyre Nichols and the acquittal of a couple of the officers that were involved in his brutal, deadly beating a couple years ago. All right, so let's jump right into it. First up, we're going to talk about an accident that happened over in Alabama, over on the I-65 over in Alabama, killing one person and injuring another. And we're just going to talk about the ability to be safe on these highways with, just not controlling what everybody else is doing. Let's check it out.
Seeing new information on a series of crashes. This is video from one of the crashes in Decatur from earlier this week on the Tennessee River Bridge. Aaliyah says one person is dead and another was injured. A two-vehicle crash on Tuesday involving a tractor-trailer resulted in the death of William D. Hardrick. The Chevrolet Impala that he was driving was struck by a tractor-trailer driven by John McAdams. As a result of that impact, the vehicle Hardrick was driving left the roadway, struck a fence and a guardrail, and then overturned. Hardrick was pronounced dead on the scene. McAdams failed to stop. McAdams was also involved in a crash earlier that day. The 18-wheeler he was driving struck a Nissan Sentra. The woman was transported to Athens Hospital for treatment. After striking multiple vehicles, the 18-wheeler eventually came to a stop and caught fire. McAdams was arrested and charged with murder and 2 counts of felony leaving the scene of an accident and driving under the influence of alcohol. He will be in court next week.
And it's just one of those additional sad situations where people are dying for no reason. They didn't get up that morning expect to die, get up that morning to expect to do anything that was going to cause them to die or to get hurt in such a situation. And, with all of the technology and safety features that we have in vehicles these days, with the airbags and the ADAS systems and the sensors and all these other entities, people are still dying on the highways, and they're dying because of the neglect of other people. And it's just not something that we're going to ever be able to completely get rid of. There are cars that have systems in them that can tell when you're not paying attention, or even when you're under the influence. Those systems that, when you get caught driving under the influence, you got to have one of those breathalyzers in your cars. One of my kids had one of those not that long ago. And it's just one of those things where it's just so hard to control the uncontrollable, to control what other people are doing when they're driving their vehicles, how they're driving their vehicles, what kind of vehicles they're driving, to the point where their vehicle, like a semi-truck, could kill multiple people, injure multiple people. It's just something that is just sad. And when it comes to the automotive industry, that they're trying their best to weed this type of thing out with the rules. And this is part of the reason I brought this up, is they're having the rules that semi-truck trailer drivers have to learn how to read. And of course, I've known several semi-truck drivers, spent a lot of time on the road with a couple, being assistant when I was in college. And yeah, them cats don't know how to read. There's a lot of them that are just, they get help, as it were, to pass the courses they standardly do know how to drive. They get their CDL training pretty much from their fathers or their brothers or something like that, to the point where they don't have to go through any process of learning how to read other than the process of passing the test. And that's pretty straightforward, if you can read the little signs on the paperwork, or, just understand what the concepts are, you can get away with passing your CDL and not have the ability to read. And then, of course, you always said, they always said that the Department of Transportation, provoked this by the way they have, the signs set up, how signs are designed for you to be able to see a sign and its shape and its characteristics, to be able to tell what that sign is telling you without having to read what's on the sign. So, but of course, that in itself tells you that the overall idea is that the Department of Transportation understands that a fairly decent percentage of the people on our roads don't know how to read. They know that. They have to know that. They, even when they're, with the highway signs and the street exits and everything like that, they're all set up in a way that you as a person, if you don't know how to read, you can navigate these situations. So it is a great thing that they are putting in this extra safety measure that truck drivers know how to read, because of course you just run into situations where they can't follow instructions very well. Accidents can happen, let's just put it that way. Just overall, without that knowledge, without that ability, accidents can happen. Now mind you, you have to agree to some degree that this is going to knock a lot of people out of the business, as it were. People who don't speak the language, people who are just, people who can't read, straight up. They going, this is going to knock those people out of the business, which is going to create some controversy. It's going to create some disdain, but it's going to make sure that the people who are on the roads are doing it correctly. And then, of course, the advent of the AI in trucks and the self-driving semis is going to put a lot of people out of business as well. So, it's twofold, but we have to do everything in our power to keep our roads safe, and keep our roads safe from people like Mr. Adams, who decided they're going to drive big old semi-trucks, that could kill people at high rates of speed on our highways drunk. We just have to get rid of those type of people altogether. All right, let's keep it going. So next up, we're going to talk about the Secret Service and GM. GM has decided that it's going to give the Secret Service and those entities a whole bunch of vehicles. This is not new. GM is one of the, the main advocates of the giving vehicles to the Secret Service, or to the government, as it were, to drive and to use. And it's just a promotion. What it is they still pay for it. They still pay for it. It's not something that they're gonna give it to them for free. It may seem like it's free, but they pay for it. They do, and it's a big promotion for GM to do this, to design these vehicles, to say that they're designed specifically for the Secret Service, and then use that in the back end to promote it. Oh, these are cars that the Secret Service drive. You know what I mean? So we're going to check out a story about how GM is giving these vehicles to the Secret Service. And of course, as it is that a couple of these cars are manual transmission, they're talking about how it is important for the Secret Service and people like that to know how to drive sticks. So let's check it out.
Secret Service revs up training with luxury vehicles. When you think of the U.S. Secret Service, images of agents in dark suits, sunglasses, and black SUVs might come to mind. But did you know that these elite protectors of the president and high-ranking officials are now getting behind the wheel of some seriously impressive vehicles? That's right. This week, General Motors rolled out the red carpet, delivering a fleet of 10 stunning vehicles to the Secret Service's James J. Rowley Training Center in Laurel, Maryland. This isn't just any ordinary fleet. It's a mix of power and luxury design to give agents a taste of driving experiences beyond their usual rides. Among the new arrivals are 3 robust SUVs, a Cadillac Escalade, a Chevrolet Suburban, and a Chevrolet Tahoe equipped with a police package. But the real showstoppers? 2 sleek Chevrolet Corvettes that are sure to turn heads. But wait, there's more. GM also sent 4 Cadillac sedans, specifically the CT4 and CT5 models, 2 of which boast manual transmissions. These aren't just any sedans. They're the high-performance CT4, V Blackwing with a twin-turbocharged V6, and the CT5, V Blackwing powered by a supercharged V8. You might wonder why a government agency would need such high-octane machines, but the Secret Service has a solid reason for this unique addition to their training arsenal. Mark Armstrong, a seasoned driving instructor at the RDC, explains, "Not everyone is able to operate a manual shift. Having that platform here will enable us to give instruction on how to drive manual vehicles for overseas trips. These trips can involve protective duties or visits to foreign field offices, making it essential for agents to master a variety of driving skills and vehicle types." Scott Simons, the special agent in charge of the RDC, adds, "Experience with different types of vehicles can help instructors teach students how to adapt their driving techniques based on the vehicle they are operating. Each vehicle handles differently, and exposure to new cars will challenge instructors, allowing them to create more realistic training scenarios. Imagine the surprise for trainees who expect a standard black Tahoe only to see a Corvette zoom into the training area. While it's true that most agents will likely find themselves driving a Tahoe in their daily duties, it's hard not to dream about the thrill of a supercharged V8 powered CT5 V Blackwing. Sorry, agents. But it seems that beauty will remain a fantasy for now. General Motors has a long-standing relationship with the Secret Service, providing everything from presidential parade limousines to armored SUVs for motorcades. Originally established to combat counterfeiting of U.S. currency, the Secret Service has evolved into a multifaceted agency that also tackles financial and cybercrime investigations. So, whether they're protecting the...
Alright, so that was just a flashy storyline. Didn't want to go down that road. But we're going to read what Austin American Statesman, never heard that publication before. We're going to read this, how they wrap this up. Technology, you gotta love it. Alright, so Secret Service agents to learn stick shift driving on new GM training fleet. This is by Jackie Charniga, Detroit Free Press. Quiet. Alright. Courtesy of General Motors, agents trained to one day protect the President of the United States and other top officials will learn how to drive stick shift vehicles. The U.S. Secret Service promoted its relationship with General Motors after the company delivered 10 vehicles May 7 to the agency's James J. Rowley Training Center in Laurel, Maryland. 2 of those vehicles have manual transmissions, according to one of the trainers. In a minute-long video posted to social media site X April 6, the entity charged with protecting the nation's leaders, financial system, and cybersecurity said in a statement that GM supplies some of the Secret Service's most visible protective vehicles. In addition to the presidential parade limousine, the Detroit automaker also provides armored SUVs and motorcades, the agency said. GM would not confirm whether it had previously sent the Secret Service testing vehicles. GM's committed to ensuring that the brave men and women who protect our nation, our national security, and our government institutions have the best equipment to improve their training and to execute their critical mission. Steve Dumont, GM Defense President, said in a statement emailed to the Detroit Free Press, part of U.S. Today Network. We have always been honored to support our government and are proud to continue to be trusted with this mission. All right, so it's a whole bunch of fluff just to say we're giving the Secret Service a whole bunch of vehicles so they can promote our vehicles, and we make these big old statements right now like they're doing in this article and the little thing that we just saw a minute ago, and they shooting it on Twitter and just telling, hey, Jim, we over here giving the Secret Service cars, man. Trump, you got to see that we're helping you, man. All these cars we're helping you with, we're giving you these cars. We want you to be happy, and your training to be happy, and your Secret Service to be happy and like our cars, so they'll buy them, so you can promote our cars to the American public, and you'll like us, Trump, and you'll get rid of all the tariffs that is going to hurt us in the future. It's just a promotional ploy, my friends. Which is cool. I mean, they need cars to train on and all this other stuff. And my big thing about this whole thing is the manual transmission part of it. I think that everybody should learn how to drive a manual transmission. I don't. I, it it is. You will be hard pressed to find a good percentage of people that learn how to drive manual transmissions. The majority of the people that that know how to drive manual transmissions are over a certain age. If you are under a certain age and you know how to drive a manual transmission, you're driving it for a particular reason. You think it's going to be faster. You think having a stick shift is cool, which is great. But I think that majority should know how to drive a manual. Majority. I mean, there's so many situations that you might get caught in that you have to drive a manual car. I think. Now, mind you, we live in a world where you don't have to. You can go your whole entire life driving a manual vehicle. Hell, my little guy, he don't drive at all. So we live in this world where lots have changed. You know, the vehicles we've driven have changed. How people, commute from one place to another has changed so much. But for me, I always thought it was most for me, and I would say, let me just say it for me. I would say for most men, it's imperative that you learn how to drive a stick. There's so many situations where you might end up, driving a truck that has a stick, a manual, or, a U-Haul, or, so many situations where I would think it'd be just important to know. I remember when I did my little stint in, in a military type situation, and they pretty much forced us to know how to drive a stick. And what they did was, it was like 30 in my group or whatever, and what they had you do was you had to get into this truck, this truck that they had, and it was a stick, and you had to drive it from you started at one corner, and you had to drive this stick from this corner all the way. You had to go to the 4 points. You had to drive it straight. You had to turn it and go to the next point. You had to turn it again, go to that point, and you had to end up where you started. And they didn't teach you anything. They didn't teach you nothing. They told you the basics. This is a clutch. This is your gas. This is your brake. And what happened was that the guys on the side, me and all the guys on the side that already knew how to drive sticks by this time in our lives, we would yell instructions to the guys to get them to do it. And everybody would eventually do it, but, it took us several days to get it done because, some guys just wasn't picking it up. We would have to, because we couldn't, after it was over, after they stopped us from doing it, you couldn't, you could go over it at the house or, in our dorm or whatever and try to explain to them what they needed to do, just let up on the clutch lightly while you pushing on the gas. Don't let up on the clutch too much. You know what I'm saying? Just trying to teach them so we can get this shit over with because it was stopping us from doing something else. But what I'm saying is that I really believe that driving a stick is just a dying knowledge or dying ability that we need to make sure doesn't die out. I think that, it's hard to say. It's just, it's just so, we live in this cookie cutter world. We live in this easy does it world that it is starting to really believe that we're starting to really dip into that Wally World situation that I always talk about. I don't know if I ever spoke about this on the show, but I really see the world going into a Wally situation. I don't know what that means, if you know what that means, but it's the movie Wally. If you ever seen the movie Wally, where all of the people in the movie Wally are fat as fuck, and they all are living in chairs, and all they food comes to them. Robots bring them their food. Their TVs are in their chairs. They move around ships and their lives inside these chairs, and it's all fat as fuck. And it's just a paramount idea on how the world's going to look if we continue to go down this AI isolated, robotic field, easy does it world. And driving automatic and these push button start vehicles and all these other things, is really leading us down that road. So this is one of them things that gets on my nerves and that I want to talk about. Learn how to drive a stick. That's all I'm saying. Learn how to drive a stick. I know you got somebody in your family who got a stick. Have them teach you how to drive a stick. Now mind you, it took me weeks to teach Alicia how to drive a stick. And after all those weeks of teaching her how to drive a stick, she ended up getting another car. Yeah. All right. Let's keep it going. So, Neil Young, prominent folk singer. I would call him a folk singer. I don't know what else people would call him, but I call him a folk singer. Adamant guy, really with the shit with his music. Came out with a couple of songs, and he came out with this song recently that's pretty much, he talks about a lot about cars. He has a lot of classic cars. I think he has a 65 Continental like I did back in the day. And so we're going to check out this story about how he has this new song out where he's talking pretty much about Tesla and GM. And, I thought it was a real interesting story. So let's check it out. All right. So this is from Motor Trend. Neil Young's latest single uses F word for Tesla, critiques Detroit Big Three, and this is by Christian Seaball, and this is from May 5th. Okay. Neil Young, like many rock stars, is a gearhead. His book, Special Deluxe, was an autobiography looking back at the 79-year-old folk rocker's life through his cars at an age when many of his peers are slowing down. Young has still been spotted out and about, cruising in his custom cars, such as his Link Vault Restomodded 1959 Lincoln Continental. Restomodded. He's also not surprisingly penned at least a half a dozen songs about cars. His latest, Let's Roll Again, shows just how much Young is keeping up with the auto industry and calls out GM, Ford, Stellantis, and Tesla in the wake of the increased Chinese competition. Written to the tune of Woody Guthrie's This Land Is Your Land, Let's Roll Again starts out with shots fired at the Detroit 3. Come on Ford, come on GM, come on Chrysler, let's roll again. The song starts before continuing, building something useful that people need. Build us a safe way for us to be. Build us something that won't kill our kids, that runs real clean. Young, who is a proponent of cleaner electrified cars, then spends a latter verse detailing his wish list for future product from Ford and GM, singing build us some small vans for city streets and spend a clean day delivering. Don't want no loud sounds coming from the back spewing a bunch of poison. It's not a racetrack. The song's chorus discusses a story Motor Trend has been paying particularly close attention to: increased competition from China in the form of the country's electric cars. On down the highway from place to place, come on America, let's get in the race. Now China's way ahead. They're building clean cars. Some days are like that. Some days are like that. It doesn't matter. Some days are like that. So taste your freedom, he sings. Okay. Young's final verse calls out Tesla and its CEO Elon Musk, the latter which has been in the news lately for his outsized role in the Trump administration, singing, if you're a fascist, then get a Tesla. If it's electric, it doesn't matter. If you're a Democrat, then taste your freedom. Get whatever you want and taste your freedom. You can listen to the song yourself below. Let's check it out for a minute. I know we're going to probably get demonetized or something, but we'll be all right.
From place to place, come on America, let's get in the race. Yeah, China's way ahead, they're building clean cars. Some days are like that, it doesn't matter. Some days are like that, so taste your freedom. Come on Ford, come on GM,
All right, all right, all right. We get it, we get it. All right, we get it, we get it. We get it, we get it. We get it. All right, I mean, you know, I mean, you know, it's you know, it's Neil Young. He's at an age where he's pretty much seen it all. He you know, he's dealt with all. He's older than me, so he understands a lot when it comes to. Obviously, he understands a lot when it comes to the automotive industry to his degree. You know, I'm not. I'm with it. You know, come on Ford, come on GM. We got to catch up to this electric EV race. I believe what he's saying is true to some degree. You know, I don't know about the fascist Tesla situation, what he's talking about there. You know, but you know, it is what it is. He's definitely entitled to his opinion. Definitely entitled to continue to make music, you know, and he's right to, you know, in a couple ways, shapes and forms, he's right. We're completely and utterly losing the EV race. I don't think he understands that Tesla is compounded as an American company. I don't think that would cause people to be fascists if they're buying Teslas. You know, I think that if he's telling Ford and GM and all these other companies to come on, then he should be telling Tesla that as well, because they are considered to be an American company. They're not part of the big three, but they are considered to be the American EV company, as it were, the predominant American EV company. So, but I mean, it was catchy. You know, I love me some good old country and some good old folks. So, shout out to Neil Young and keep on going at your age, my friend. That's excellent that you can keep on doing that. So, all right. Last but not least, I want to just touch back on this real quickly. We did the story about Tyre Nichols a long time ago. I think even before we were the Car Concierge show, we did the story about Tyre Nichols and how them police officers whooped him up that day. And, you know, we expected, honestly, we kind of expected that, well, I kind of expected that they would all go down. I kind of expected that all them officers would spend the rest of their lives in prison. And I didn't think that the power of the blue shield would pop up and save these brothers, but I guess it did. Let's check it out.
Well, moving on now, more reaction to this story.
And, you know, a lot of focus has been on the jury, as you heard Rovon Wells state, that decided the fate of those 3 former Memphis police officers on trial. That jury was from Hamilton County, 5.5 hours from Memphis in the far eastern part of the state.
WREG's April Thompson looks at why attorneys went that far away to find a jury and if it was a mistake for the prosecution.
Hamilton County, Tennessee, 358 miles from Memphis. Attorneys traveled there to find a jury for the 3 officers on the state trial in the Tyre Nichols beating death. Defense attorneys wanted the change of venue over concerns an impartial jury couldn't be found near Shelby County because of so much publicity about the Tyre Nichols case.
There was a motion filed to defense to change venue, and there was a study done of the amount of publicity in the various large cities in Tennessee, and it was found that Chattanooga had the lowest amount of pretrial publicity with regard to this case, and so that's why it was chosen.
Hamilton County, with a population of around 380,000, is 76% white and 20% black, a lot different from Memphis. While we're not sure about the demographics of the full jury pool that was called for the Tyre Nichols case, the final 12 jurors that decided it were all white.
They did not look like Mr. Nichols, or they did not look like the officer they were charged. And we're supposed to be judged by what? People that are our own peers. So.
But this jury was not reflective of the city of Memphis. And I think that was a big win for the defense, because I think the jurors tend to be more conservative from places like Chattanooga and East Tennessee, other parts of East Tennessee, Knoxville, which they're going to be more friendly to the police. And I think that's what you saw here this week.
We asked longtime attorney Art Horn, who was not involved in the Tyre Nichols trial, if attorneys could have done more to get a diverse set of jurors.
I'm sure one of the questions was, had they seen the video in Tyre Nichols' case? And disproportionately, I'm sure African Americans saw that video more than probably white Americans. And so I think that hampered the ability to get diversity and minorities on that jury.
Hamilton County and Chattanooga are worlds apart when it comes to issues facing the communities. Memphis is in a crime fight that's become well known around the region. And it even played into defense attorney Martin Zumach's closing arguments as he read crime headlines to the jury.
CNN headline, CNN. Memphis mayor meets with gang leaders to request ceasefire.
Stressing what police like those on trial face every day.
Crime has continued to go nuts. That's a matter of public record. It's a matter of your own knowledge in your own head when you come to Shelby County.
It was masterful. I think he did a great job for his client. I think he did a great job for his client. I think he knew the audience that he was catering to, and they played right into the hands of those jurors from Hamilton County.
It worked for the defense. Attorneys got the verdicts they wanted from a jury they pushed for, and prosecutors left to deal with the outcome.
I think it's a testimony to the fairness of our criminal justice system that we bent over backwards to get a jury from another jurisdiction to assure that the defendants were given a fair trial. Beyond that, I don't think I should comment.
Reporting for your news leader in Memphis, April Thompson, WREG News Channel 3.
All right, so the state trial is over. We still have federal sentencing to go, and then the civil case will come up sometime next year.
Yeah, lots more to go in this case, and we will be following it every step of the way.
You bet.
All right, so I mean that's cool. That's fine and dandy. You know, for me, it was just a situation where, you know.
And a new list of affordable safe cars is now.
Obviously, for me, you know, and if you saw the video that I saw of them dudes beating no boy ass, there's no way in hell they would have got off. I think personally that this was one of those situations, and they explained it very perfectly that, you know, they picked up a set of jurors from another county, you know, all of a certain demographic that probably had very little information about the case before they became jurors, like the information that we had, or the people that of our color that watched that video, seeing brothers beating up on another brother, and you know, they used the information they had and the thought process of, you know, police officers are held by a different standard. Police officers are already given the benefit of the doubt. They're police officers, so they've been signed on to help you. So if they've been signed on to help you, then automatically, if you believe that they are a group of entities, or they are an entity that is there to help you, then you're going to automatically give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's what a lot of white or, you know, other groups will do with the police. It's not the same when it comes to the black community. Black community in most cases, depending on where you are, do not give that benefit of the doubt to the police. They don't assist the police when they're doing investigations, you know, all these type of things, always fighting with the police, as it were. But that, like he said, the defense did a masterful job. They picked up the right jurors, they presented the correct defense, and they created the blue shield that most police officers, when they are acquitted of cases that they committed a crime on, they created that blue shield that protects them. Because there's always there's always been some grace given to police officers when they do something. There's always been given some grace. When somebody gets shot by a police officer, you know, Massey case, there's always some grace given. Now, would a police officer get found guilty? Would a police officer get in trouble? You know, if they're wrong, and there's a lot of cases where police officers do get in trouble. But there's a lot more cases where police officers don't get in trouble at all. Or they get a slap on the wrist. Now these cats here, I mean, they beat this state case, but they're still facing federal charges. I think another 2 of the gentlemen already were found guilty on some charges. So there's going to be punishment dealt out to these gentlemen. There's no doubt. Because nobody who had seen that video of them whooping that dude ass thinks they're completely innocent of everything. There's no way. That's not something I can believe. If you saw the video of them whooping his ass, then you know that they're guilty of something. So, once again, for me, when it comes to this Tyre Nichols situation, I think that, you know, the defense attorney was well paid for and well gotten. He did everything in his power to create a scenario that would put up the massive blue shield, and a massive blue shield backed or, you know, powered by, you know, the community, by the people who believe in the police. Because that's what he did. He went to a county where the people believed in the police, and got away from a county that definitely the people don't believe in the police. And it worked well for these gentlemen. So we'll see what happens when it comes to the federal case and the civil cases and all that type of thing. But for now, they got over, and the blue shield worked. All right, guys, I'm going to let y'all get up out of here. I'm your boy, Chris Surratt. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Car Concierge Show, the show that helps with the buying, selling, maintaining, and repairing of your vehicle, with some kerfuffle about my name. And I'm out. Please like, share, subscribe. Hit me in the DMs if you have any questions. Check me out. Peace.